On Saturday evening, March 27, 2010, a group of young people attended a party at the home of relatives near 68th Street and Vermont Avenue. At about 10 p.m., several of them were walking back from the corner store while others waited, watching from the front yard of the relatives' apartment building. Among those walking were Barnes, his brothers, Travion and Tyler Griffith, his cousins Michael Lee, Deanna Graves, and Paul Graves, and some friends, including Williams. A black sedan moved slowly past, made a U-turn, pulled alongside them, and one or more of the passengers opened fire on the group, killing Williams and striking Barnes in his hip and lower leg. Barnes later underwent 2 surgeries and remained in the hospital for a week. At the time of trial he was still in pain, undergoing frequent treatment, and still walking with a limp. Barnes and Deanna testified at trial that they heard gunfire and saw a muzzle flash emanating from the passenger side window of the black sedan. Barnes identified a photograph of the car and pointed it out in a surveillance video of the shooting. Lee also identified the shooter's car in court from a surveillance video, adding that the passenger window was down. He then saw the shooter stick a large-caliber gun out the window and heard more than 5 gunshots. Lee lived in the neighborhood where the shooting occurred and knew it to be a Crip gang area. Tyler saw the black car approach with the back passenger window all the way down, saw a passenger fire a chrome revolver which he thought was a .44 caliber, and heard about 4 to 6 gunshots. Tyler described the shooter as a dark-skinned male African American in his 20s, wearing braids, a white shirt and no hat. DePaul also saw a bright flash coming from the car and heard 3 shots, followed by at least 10 more. Travion testified he saw the car approach the group, and then saw an occupant of the car roll down the window and start shooting. Travion heard 6 to 10 gunshots in all, and saw a muzzle flash from the passenger side. Travion could not describe the car, and gave conflicting testimony regarding the identity of the shooter and the gun. He denied making some of the statements he gave to detectives, claiming that he merely passed on information given to him by his brother Tyler, but admitted that he saw the shooter's eyes as his face was visible from the top lip upward. Travion testified that although he did not live in the area, he often visited the neighborhood around 68th Street and Vermont Avenue, and knew it to be the territory claimed by the 65 Menlo Crip gang. It became known in the neighborhood that the shooting was gang-related. Travion denied being afraid to testify, but admitted that he knew what a snitch was, and in gang culture snitches were murdered. He did not want to be a snitch. Officers Anthony Daniel and Scott Coffey of the Los Angeles Police Department, LAPD, were on patrol that evening in the area of South Vermont Avenue and 68th Street, when they heard the gunfire. When they looked in the direction of the sound they saw a muzzle flash coming from the passenger compartment of a black 4-door Nissan Maxima, which then moved away westbound. The officers followed the Nissan, broadcast their location, and requested backup. At 66th Street and Kansas Avenue, the Nissan abruptly stopped and 3 African American men got out and fled on foot. The officers described one of the suspects as wearing dark clothing and another as wearing a white shirt and tan pants. The third man to exit the car was in dark clothing and wore his hair in cornrow braids. The suspects left the car doors open when they fled, and Officer Daniel found a glove on the street next to an open car door. LAPD Officer Matthew Fryer also heard the gunfire while on patrol. He testified that the gunshots sounded like they came from a large-caliber handgun such as a .44- or .45 caliber. He and his partner followed Officers Coffey and Daniels and joined the foot chase after the Nissan stopped. Officer Fryer also described the third person to flee the Nissan as an African-American man with his hair in cornrows. The officers lost sight of the suspects when they turned onto 65th Place from Kansas Avenue. A perimeter was set up as other police officers and a K-9 unit joined the search. The suspects were not found within the perimeter, but clothing and a gun were found along the route of the foot pursuit. 2 light-colored shirts were recovered, as well as a black jacket resembling the jacket worn by the suspect with cornrows. 6 The crime scene investigation and recovery of additional evidence. Investigating officer, LAPD Detective David Dilks, testified that he went to the location where the Nissan was abandoned and saw that the front and rear passenger windows were down and the key was still in the ignition. He found the registration, in the name of Aisha Hill, later determined to be related to Russell. In a carport on 66th Street, in the area of the suspect's escape route, Detective Dilks recovered a .44 caliber chrome handgun loaded with 3 live rounds. Other officers found black clothing containing a set of keys and a knit cap, a do-rag, in the pocket of the black jacket. The Nissan was impounded and then searched, swabbed for DNA, and adhesive fingerprint lifts were taken. 3 cell phones were found in the center console, while a pair of black knit gloves and a stainless steel .357 caliber revolver were found on the floorboard of the front passenger seat containing 6 empty casings. A blue bandana was found on the passenger side next to a white cell phone. In the trunk, officers found a loaded rifle and a black knit glove similar to the other gloves recovered. In the passenger compartment of the car, officers found a CD case, 2 disposable cameras, a pair of gold glasses, and 2 backpacks, one with $55 cash, a paper bearing Russell's name, and a paper addressed to Archie Henderson, Archie. A photograph of Russell wearing gold glasses was later extracted from one of the cell phones. The keys found in the ignition were specific to that particular car and had not been shaved. Detective Dilks explained that car thieves would often shave a key to make it fit into the ignition of the same model car. LAPD Gang Enforcement Officer Warner Carias testified that between 2008 and 2011 he was assigned to monitor 3 gangs in his area, including the 11 Deuce Broadway Gangster Crip Gang. 7 During the evening of November 2, 2008, Officer Carias was assigned to observe the Broadway Gangster Crip Gang's Hood Day Party, which took place in the gang's territory on 109th Place, just west of Main Street. 8 The 7 Throughout the trial, witnesses called the gang by its full name, the 11 Deuce Broadway Gangster Crip Gang, or abbreviated the gang's name in various ways, such as the 112th Broadway Gangster Crips, the 112 Broadway Gangster Crip Gang, or simply the Broadway Gangsters. We will refer to it as the Broadway Gangster Crip Gang and to its members collectively as the Broadway Gangster Crips. 8 Officer Carias explained that a Hood Day is a gang's day of celebration, and the date chosen usually reflected the name of the neighborhood or the gang. Thus, 11 Deuce, which refers to 112th Street, used November 2. 9 Majority of attendees, more than 15, were members of the Broadway Gangster Crip Gang or its subsets, including the 5 Deuce Broadway Gangster set. 9 There were no children or older people present. Defendants attended the party that day together and with a third person, Lamont Sessions. Officer Carias took photographs of all of the attendees, gathered as much information about them as he could, and documented the information. Evans was dressed down in the gang's color, wearing a blue shirt and blue pants. Russell was also wearing blue, a blue t-shirt, a blue bandana, and a blue baseball cap with the letter B for Broadway Gangsters on it. Both of the defendants and Sessions, each admitted to being a member of the 5 Deuce Broadway Gangster set. Sessions told Officer Carias that his moniker was Way Out. Neither Russell nor Evans indicated a moniker. LAPD officer Eduardo Mercado also came into contact with Russell the night of the 2008 Hood party, not far from 109th Place and Main Street. Russell admitted to being a member of the Broadway Gangster Crip Gang and gave his moniker as Bashin. He was in the company of M. Bruce and D. Russell, both members of the Broadway Gangster Crip Gang. Officer Mercado documented the contact on a field identification card, FI card. In March 2009, LAPD officer Colin Brennan stopped a car driven by Evans in the company of Sessions, and documented their conversation on an FI card. Evans provided his driver's license number, admitted he was a gang member, and said his moniker was Lil Tiny. Detective Dilks took photographs of the tattoos on Evans and Russell, and during trial showed them to the jury, and explained their gang significance. Evans had a tattoo of a bird with money bags, a common representation of the Get Money squad of the Broadway Gangster Crip gang. On Russell's neck was 11 deuce, and on Russell's 9. We henceforth refer to the 5 deuce Broadway Gangsters subset as the Broadway Gangster Crip gang or Broadway Gangster Crips, except where necessary to distinguish it from the entire 11 deuce Broadway Gangster Crip gang. 10 right inner forearm was B with wings, surrounded by 11 deuce WS and 5 deuce WT gang expert LAPD Detective Patrick Flaherty testified as the prosecution's gang expert, noting that the gangs within his area of expertise included the Broadway Gangster Crip gang, the Main Street Mafia Crip gang, and several others. Detective Flaherty testified that as of March 2010, the Broadway Gangster Crips sometimes called themselves Ways or Broadways. The term A's, Ways, and Mains referred to 3 aligned gangs which normally got along with one another: the Avalon Gangster Crip gang, the Broadway Gangster Crip gang, and the Main Street Mafia Crip gang. Detective Flaherty explained that the Broadway Gangster Crip gang had approximately 130 to 140 members, and would throw a common hand sign to identify themselves. The 5 deuce Broadway Gangster Crip gang subset was part of the same gang as the 11 deuce Broadway Gangster Crip gang, with members claiming allegiance to both. The gang and its subset both claimed territory that included 112th Street. The Broadway Gangster Crip gang's special color was blue, and members often wore blue clothing, as well as hats with a B on them, such as Brooklyn Dodger hats. Members usually wore their special color at Hood Day celebrations. Sometimes gang members celebrated Hood Day by going into rival territory with other members to commit shootings. Detective Flaherty described tattoos commonly worn by Broadway Gangster Crip members: BGC 112, GM, which represented the Get Money squad, and W for Way or Watts. Tattoos indicated dedication to the gang and could mean that a member had put in work for the gang. Detective Flaherty explained that putting in work meant committing crimes to benefit the gang, such as dealing drugs or guns, and committing shootings or robberies. Gang members must earn the ink by putting in work for the gang, and a non-member who had not put in work would not normally wear a gang-related tattoo, as that would place him in danger from the gang. 11. The gang's preferred graffiti was 11 deuce BGC, or simply Broadways. The Broadway Gangster Crips considered the East Coast Crip gang to be their enemy, and disrespectfully called its members cheese toast because it sounded like East Coast. To demonstrate their disrespect, Broadway Gangster Crips would create graffiti of 2 X's within a square, representing dead toast. Detective Flaherty testified that the primary activities of the Broadway Gangster Crips were tagging on walls, writing graffiti, vandalizing, dealing in narcotics, primarily cocaine and marijuana, unlawful firearm possession, shootings, robberies, including street robberies and armed robberies, drive-by shootings, and murder. He presented certified conviction records of other Broadway Gangster Crip gang members. One was for Akita Joshua, who was convicted of possession for sale of cocaine base and assault with a firearm on a peace officer, committed in August 2009 while a member of the Broadway Gangster Crip gang. Detective Flaherty was acquainted with Joshua, who had admitted being a member of the gang. Another record was for Yamar Louis Henry, who was convicted of assault with a firearm on a police officer committed in November 2006. Henry admitted that his crime was gang-related. Detective Flaherty knew Henry and knew that he was a member of the Broadway Gangster Crip gang at the time of the offense. Detective Flaherty was also acquainted with Deandre Stone, another Broadway Gangster Crip gang member, who he knew to be a high-ranking top-level guy in the gang, a shot caller who would give orders to the younger members to put in work for the gang. The photographs extracted from the cell phones registered to Russell and Evans were shown to the jury. Detective Flaherty explained the gang images seen in some of them. 10 photographs from Evans's cell phone included images of a street sign reading, "Watch for Broadways," with a reference to 5 deuce and 11 deuce, cheese toast. With 10 photographs from Russell's purple phone, item number 9, were admitted as exhibits 84 and 85. Photographs from Evans's black phone, item number 11, were admitted as exhibits 86, 87, 88, and 89. 12 The eyes crossed out, and an unhappy face. Other photographs included one depicting the words "highly active Crip zone," another with a t-shirt reading "zigzag" and BGC, and one with the image of Evans forming a gang sign with his fingers, a 2-4 deuce. Photographs from Russell's cell phone included images of dollar bills lined up to form 112, the Bentley automobile emblem, a bee with wings, possibly a reference to Broadway's, a t-shirt depicting a cheese toast with squinting eyes and an unhappy face, and a belt with the letters BGC. Detective Flaherty testified that gang members would accompany one another on a mission to provide witnesses who could report back that the perpetrators had put in work for the gang by committing crimes. He explained that a mission was criminal activity required by the gang, anything from a drive-by shooting to a robbery. Detective Flaherty also explained the concept of respect in gang culture. Gang members believed that they earned the community's respect by gaining a reputation for violent retribution, and that such respect would cause witnesses to refrain from cooperating with the police, thus allowing the gang to operate in the neighborhood and commit their crimes with impunity. The more brazen and vicious the crime, the greater the respect and status earned by the perpetrator within the gang. Any person who cooperated with the police would be labeled a snitch and dealt with by violence. A snitching gang member would be ousted or killed, while other snitches could receive death threats or have their homes subjected to drive-by shootings until they stopped cooperating. Gang members normally did not enter rival gang territory unprepared for a possible assault. For a mission, preparation would mean carrying weapons, whereas a party or business meeting would require a disguise or covering tattoos. Detective Flaherty was familiar with the area of West 68th Street and South Vermont Avenue, which was near the territory claimed by the 67 Neighborhoods gang, a rival of the Broadway Gangster Crip gang. Members of the Broadway Gangster Crip gang would normally arm themselves before going into the territory of the 67 Neighborhoods gang, which was aligned with the East Coast Crip gang. Detective Flaherty was able to assume the following hypothetical facts and then give his opinion. Broadway Gangster Crip gang members enter the area near West 68th Street and South Vermont Avenue in a car. In the car, they have 2 loaded revolvers, 2 pairs of gloves, a bandana, and a semi-automatic rifle in the trunk. They pass a group of young people, make a U-turn, come around, pull up to the group, and without saying anything, start shooting at them. Detective Flaherty opined that the shooting was gang-related as the gang members went into a rival gang's neighborhood prepared to shoot someone, which would qualify as putting in work for their gang. Regardless of whether the victims were gang members, such a shooting would benefit the Broadway Gangster Crip gang by spreading fear and intimidation through the community, thus enhancing its reputation and providing the respect necessary to allow the gang to control the community and operate with impunity. Detective Flaherty testified that gang members were proud of their gangs and willingly admit their gang affiliations to the police for that reason. Investigations showed that during drive-by shootings, the shooters would sometimes call out their gang's name in order to take responsibility and to demonstrate pride in the gang. However, in Officer Flaherty's last 4 or 5 investigations of gang-related shootings, he found that there was no calling out of gang names, apparently in an effort to distract law enforcement. Even without giving the name, such a shooting would still benefit the gang as the participating gang members would report to their gang, describe what happened and brag about it in order to gain respect and standing within their gang. The community would then learn who was responsible by word of mouth, and respect for the gang would thus be enhanced. Detective Flaherty concluded that the hypothetical shooting was committed for the benefit of, at the direction of, or in association with a criminal street gang. The benefit gained was the fear and intimidation of the community, preventing witnesses and victims from coming forward and allowing the gang to operate freely. The association element consisted of gang members coming together to commit a crime to benefit the gang.